Who is this woman who has Paul Rudd and Anil Kapoor and countless other stars eating out of her hands? And I mean literally. If you live in London or if you're a visitor to London and you try and eat at her restaurant, chances are that, well, unless she loves you, you're not going to get a table, not for the next week or month, but her tables are booked up almost for a year. It is time to introduce our very, very special next guest, somebody who has used food, quite literally biryani, to bust bias and barriers. It is my pleasure to welcome from London on the We the Women Global Town Hall, celebrity chef Asma Khan, who I was astonished to discover at one point in her life did not know how to cook.
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on your show, Barkha. I was just watching the three amazing women before. So inspirational. I think this is such a wonderful platform. Yes, I didn't know how to cook because I had presumed I would be married, in a traditional way in India. And, I just love to eat. I didn't love to cook.
And then?
And then I ended up marrying someone who was teaching at Cambridge University. Arranged marriages happen very quickly in my family. I met him, and then within 3 months I was in Cambridge, and he told me he could cook. A very, very liberal, very laid-back man told me, I don't believe in gender roles. I will look after you. I will feed you. You don't have to worry. Because I told him I don't know how to cook. He didn't say he was a very average cook. Very average, and only could make one thing. And then, because of the crazy Oxbridge system, he ate all his meals in college and left me to eat the same food for 1 week. And that, I think, was the worst days of my life.
And then, Asma, you actually saw, while you were at Cambridge, a school quite close to where you lived, where you would see Indian nannies who would be looking after European children come to this school. You got talking to these women and they became part of your incredible journey. I don't want to give away the story. I want you to tell our audience.
Yes, this was actually when we moved to London and my children were going to the school opposite. I saw, because I live in a very, very, at that time, a very French area. Of course, now because of Brexit, everything changes. But it was a very French area, and I noticed these women who were clearly looked like me and were looking after children and were living in. And I knew that I understood from my own experience when I moved to Cambridge, the absolutely debilitating isolation you feel. Barkha, I'm talking about 30 years ago. Now you can Skype your dog in Delhi if you want. But at that time, I wrote letters. So, the sense of uprooting was very intense. We've all forgotten what it's like, when you wrote letters, going home was expensive. We made 3-minute calls. People my age, I'm 52, do remember that time of, not being in touch. So I saw these women and realized this is exactly what's happening to them. But they were initially very hesitant when I invited them to my house. They wouldn't sit on my dining table chair. They kept standing and having chai. I said, we'll all sit on the floor. And if you don't want to sit on my chair, I'll sit on the floor. Because of the kinds of class, caste divisions that they were carrying with them as baggage from India, they didn't feel comfortable sitting and talking to me. But very soon that evaporated. We developed a very close relationship. And when I decided to do supper clubs in my house, which is like a kind of dinner in my own house, I invited them not to come and help me, but to eat. Because I knew that they missed Indian food. And I said, there's, of course, I like all Indians, you cook too much. I said, you take the leftovers and you can eat. And that's how this relationship started. And Darjeeling Express, I know a lot of people look at me and think, I am Darjeeling Express. I am nothing. I stand on the shoulders of giants. It is these women who came in, who developed this close relationship and bond and gave me that feeling that, yes, sab ho jayega, hum log kar lenge. This enthusiasm, this belief, they are the power behind everything that has happened in my life. And I take them on every journey. When I signed my contract, when we went on the building sites, I gave them the authority to decide on how things are. And we are a very close collective. We celebrate every festival, Eid, Holi, Diwali, and all the Nepali festivals that they have, because half my team is of Nepali origin. And this sense of, joy that we have, it is for us, it is not a business. It is a sense of actually being home. We have all created a home in this kitchen, in this business.
Yeah, and it's not just an all women-run kitchen, as it were, an all women-run business. It is also a deeply, in a sense, political statement for the times we live in post-Brexit, especially, Asma, because these are all women, including yourselves, who are daughters of immigrants. They're also what you call second daughters. And I know that you talk a lot about this, especially to audiences in the West who don't understand this concept. So speak a little bit about what it means to be a second daughter.
Well, the thing is that I think that people in the West do not understand, this is an agrarian society problem. If you talk to Irish women, you talk to women from Colombia, you talk to women in Mexico, they will completely get it. This whole idea of women eat last, girls eat least, we serve the men. Because the old tradition of men, working in the fields, coming back and being served. And it is to do with money. The fact that the farm is inherited by the boy, the family home is inherited by the boy. You do not give the farm to the daughter. So in those societies, there was the sense of lamenting when there wasn't a boy. And, first time, if it's a girl, the presumption is, oh, next time it will be a boy. The panic and the fear when another girl is born is very real. And no one has to sit down and tell you that, oh, we were all disappointed when you were born. You know it. And so many of us have grown up with that feeling of that we were not celebrated. And I know that when I was born, my mother was very disappointed. But my mother, who is one of 5 daughters and the middle daughter, has never talked about what happened to her. But what is incredible is she didn't differentiate when my brother was born. His birth was also not celebrated. I was 3.5. And I realized then that symbolism matters. You need to make an absolute effort to make a statement, to make that person feel equal. And, I don't know, I mean, my other siblings are going to freak out, but I think I'm my mother's favorite. And she has loved me equal to my brother and has given us the sense of equality. So it can be achieved. But invariably in our society, there is this discrimination between boys and girls are made to feel not as preferred as boys.
So today you are your mother's favorite, yet you recognize that the sort of cultural context that she came from, there was pressure on her to give birth to a boy, and then you were born, and that must have at that time perhaps increased that pressure on her. Did you ever resent her or feel angry with her for feeling somewhat unwanted as the second daughter?
No, not at all. I think that, she was at her weakest. She was probably made to feel disappointed. Also, I know that I arrived, another girl, after a series of girls had been born in the family. So I think that was also the other issue that, oh no, another girl. But I think she's amazing for the kind of background that she came from. And, the fact that she went on to be a food entrepreneur, she inspired me hugely. And she had this, things that I look back now, in 1970s, every month my mother would take all the servants in the house to a very posh restaurant with us for dinner. Everyone would stare at us, the darwan, the driver, the ayah, the cook. But Ammu would take us all. So she had that, she internalized this sense that I must make everyone feel equal. So not just that she made me feel equal and powerful, the way that she treated the staff who worked in the house, you can imagine, even today, no one will do that. People will still stare at you if you bring all your house help and sit down in a very posh restaurant. Ammu would do that in 1970s in Madras. I mean, then called Madras.
And your new book is actually your new book that's just out is actually based or inspired from her.
Yes, and the thing is that I always had this book in me, but I wanted to write it in her lifetime. I wanted her to see the fact that I honor her. But in this relationship, I think everyone can see the Ammu in their lives, not necessarily their mother, but it is, divided into 5 decades of my life where I talk about childhood food, But when I talk about the way that she shook the world gently around her, Ammu was, ran a food business in Calcutta, coming from a Nawab family. No one could throw stones at her. She stayed rooted in her culture, pretty much like me. But I challenged the patriarchy. I challenged feudalism. I challenged xenophobia and racism, Islamophobia, everywhere, because there is no justification for hate. I will not let you hate. And as an immigrant, I tell a lot of people, I will not let you hate me because of the color of my skin, my Muslim name, my accented voice. You have to sit down, eat biryani with me, understand who I am. Then, when you want to get up and hate me, I forgive you because you tried to understand who I am. But unconscious bias, I will not. And I learned this from my mother, that you do not hate anyone, you forgive, and you make an effort to do your best because you are in a position of power and privilege. And she's really inspirational.
Yeah, and I love what you just said, that you're actually battling multiple prejudices, right? Xenophobia, fear of foreigners, Islamophobia, sexism, and so it carries on, right? And yet you have look where you are today. And if we bring up the images of the kind of stars who waft in and out of your restaurant today, Asma, one can't get a table for months on end. But here's the point. You're here today, a really hugely, massively successful entrepreneur. But to get to this point was extraordinarily difficult. And I think you've written and spoken elsewhere about how people wouldn't look at you, they wouldn't give you space, they wouldn't rent to you. Talk a little bit about that struggle and what it took to get to this point.
Well, the thing is that it is very subtle. It's very sly. The problem is self-selection happens. So people in positions of power, invariably white, invariably men, they feel a sense that, you may not do it. But it is always said, so I didn't understand for a long time when they told me, we don't have a suitable place for you. I understood that's the suitable boy. I didn't have a white male business partner next to me, which made them feel. And the thing is, we're not playing a video game. This is not Mortal Kombat. You don't have to pick some physical, tattooed, tough guy because you trust him. The problem is that this sense that we are weak, that we're not reliable, comes from just pure prejudice. The fact that we're seen as submissive, as that someone who doesn't actually have the authority to make bold decisions. And my attitude is, I will not allow you to walk all over me because I am not running an equal race. The race I run alone. I don't watch who's on my left or right, but I am not running an equal race to men, to white men, even to white women. There are obstacles in my way. There are hurdles I'm jumping. I know no one else is jumping. How can I win? How can I win if you do not make the path the same between us? And every time this happens to me, I'm inspired by Akla Chalore. I think of this whole thing. Set fire to yourself, light the path. And however bloodied your feet are, for me, I take it to that level that I am clearing the way for the leaders coming after me. I feel the breath of the next generation of women behind me. I'm clearing their way. This is not about me because I could never have gone through this amount of physical, emotional, mental pain to get where I have. In my achievement, I hope I inspire a generation of women who might think, oh, she looks like my mother. She sounds like me. She wears clothes I can relate to. And feel that they belong. Because when I wanted to do what I did, there was no one. You didn't see anyone in food media, on food television, in the West, who looked like me. After Madhur Jaffrey, there was nobody. And I didn't see I belonged. I wanted to be that person who would clear the pathway for those coming, that they won't even see the hurdles that brought me down, that they don't see the scars because no one hits them. But it's happened to me. But I am still standing, and I will make sure in my lifetime, I will not die till I see women surpass my achievements. I want to applaud. I want to stand on the side and clap. I want to see someone be more successful, set the world on fire, do more than I ever did. And I want to live to see that day. So every day I know I live less. I need to make sure this happens. This is where my passion comes from. I'm quite lazy, I'm very messy, and I'm very disorganized. So it's a lot of effort for me to do what I have, but I push myself. See, I don't have a daughter, but for me, every girl is my daughter. Every young girl who feels unwanted, who feels unloved, who feels isolated, that the door is closed. A lot of people tell me that, oh, you're the first chef, on Netflix, you broke the glass ceiling. I don't want to be in a place surrounded by glass. I want to bring the entire edifice down. I want to break every door and window. I want to open up the spaces so that every woman can come in there and feel she has the right to be where she is. I don't want people to feel this imposter syndrome that I don't belong here. You
Yeah.
belong where you see yourself.
I just want to tell you that I want to cry because you've just spoken so movingly, and I was thinking that now I think you've donned many hats. I think you should also be a writer, because that is just the most beautiful set of words I've heard in a long time. So thank you. But let me ask you this: isn't it ironic that when it comes to everyday kitchen drudgery, that pressure falls on women, but when it comes to actually running your own restaurant, that space continues to be dominated by men? How do you explain this disconnect where in the gendered role, the woman is supposed to be the one cooking and eating last, as you said, but when it comes to being the celebrity chef or the restaurant owner, it's mostly men? Or, as you said, it's not women who look like you or me.
It's a very good question. And it's not just, it is a South Asian thing. In every home, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, women are not, if they're not cooking, they're in charge of the food. And it's always men. But if you look at all the men who are cooking in the West, especially, everyone's CV is identical. They went to the same kind of culinary school or hospitality school, and then they trained in five-star hotels. Everyone's kali dal is the same. How many of us eat kali dal at home? We don't. It's so difficult to digest. And
Yeah.
it's this thing that it's not just that men. I don't mind their success. I'm happy for them. They're boys of someone's mother who would be so proud of them, and good for them that they've done so well. But this bias is incredible, and it is so unfair, because we are not just the women who are doing the drudgery of cooking every day. We are the custodian of family recipes. We are the nourishers of generations. We are the ones who are passing on recipes. And this is why it is so hard to accept why we are nowhere. And not just that we're not even in positions of power. You do find, if you go into five-star hotels in India, the pastry chef is invariably a woman. You find them now in five-star hotels, having gone through, but you do not find them all powerful, the authority, the one making the decision, the one calling the shots. And power matters. If you think,
Yeah.
symbolism is, you tick a box. I have two women working in my kitchen. How powerful are they? Can they decide on things? Can they protect another woman who's being bullied? Can they ensure that when they apply for promotion, they're treated equally to another man? This is where we hit all the walls that we are held back. And we need to change this. And I just want to point out this to you, Barkha. There's Suruchi in Calcutta. There's an organization in Nizamuddin. An all-female kitchen cooking Indian food. At the level that I am the only one in the world.
Yeah.
There is no other all-female kitchen run by a female founder in the world. This says so much. Also, that I'm in London. I don't know whether I could have opened this in India. My women come from all kinds of different backgrounds. All of them are Hindu. All of them, have very different stories. Some from very deprived backgrounds. But they have all felt equal to me. One of the reasons is I pay them the same as I pay myself. Every hour
Really?
I work in the
That's
kitchen, yes,
that's
all of
amazing.
us. That's what I do. And I can do this. And they accept it. So there was a day when all the koftas I was making was breaking. The woman who was washing the pots told me, just go. You wash the pots, I will make the kofta because we can't afford this waste. Squeeze it, you squeeze it. She felt authority. She felt the power. This was the woman who would not sit on my chair to have tea, who looked down when I walked in. She had been empowered. Money matters. Put your money
Yeah.
where your mouth is. Don't just say, this is the most important. In every society, especially in the West, women are paid less than men. Absolutely in every organization, including the BBC, where you had to
Yeah.
go to court to get this justice. And this is the West where they say, so called, that there is actually equality. I can tell you this, there is no equality anywhere in the East and the West. It is just more covert, more sophisticated, more hidden in the West. But this is all the veneer of equality.
Yeah.
And I have said this as well, that I have no truck with white feminists who don't get me, who don't understand,
Why don't they get?
who
What do they not get? What do they not get about you?
that I'm still happy to hold on to parts of my culture. I don't drink, I
Hmm.
don't have pork, I still wear shalwar kameez because I find it very comfortable. And when I walk in the beginning, there was that, oh, she's not drinking champagne. Oh, are you a practicing Muslim? And this whole idea that, I could still keep part of my culture. I don't need to throw the baby away with the bathwater. This is not required. I can hold on to what I like. I will challenge what I'm uncomfortable with. But I am very proud of my faith, of my name, of my Indian heritage. I carry that as a badge on my heart, my Indianness. And no one should question my right to call myself an Indian. In this country, in any other country, you identify yourself as who you are. No one should be allowed to put a label on you that you are this or you are that. I will be everything I want to be. Show me a box big enough in which you can fit me. I will not be boxed into one thing that you say you are this or you are that. I am everything. Every day I'll be someone else. But I will tell you who I am. You will not tell me who I am. But the problem is that it is this difficult situation where at the moment it's quite a lonely place where I am.
I was
I
going
will
to
now
ask you
spend the
that. I was going to ask you that. How lonely has it been, and how lonely is it?
very, very. And I have to say, I take inspiration from people like you, other
Thank you.
women in different fields, and think this, that they are akla cholore, they are unafraid. I look up to women who are unafraid in every culture, but I look to the women in my own country, in India. And, I've lived for 30 years now in the West. Uh, People are surprised, they say, oh, you're still accented. If anyone touches me and says, where is home? I will say Calcutta. I have lived in away for so long. My ruh, my soul is still in India. My roots go down below the oceans. My sustenance comes from India. And this is the thing that, I have never left. I have never been, I felt uprooted, but somehow I'm connected so deeply. And I try to take I listen to a lot of music, I read and I write poetry. I try to keep myself feeling connected to who I am. It's very important because otherwise it gets very hard. And I know
Yeah.
that so many women struggle and work very hard. They don't get the fame or the adulation, mashallah, you and I have got. This is a position of privilege, but
Of course.
I think also it's important to say that it is tough, it is lonely, it is hard, because I don't want people to think that this is a road that is so easy, because when they hit their first hurdle, they will not be understanding that you and I hit it so many times. We
Yeah, I was just
overcame
going to
them.
say,
We
yeah,
stood
I was
up.
just going to say, I was just going to say, sorry, I'm interrupting you, but I was just going to say that I always tell women that the toughest thing is actually to have the strength to be yourself. And while it is liberating, it is also the loneliest thing because everybody will have a judgment of who they want you to be. And if you refuse to be boxed in, as you have, as I have certainly, you will also often find yourself alone.
Yes. But the thing is, I still find myself alone. But incredibly, for someone the color of skin I am, with the name I have not been trolled in the West. So when Netflix announced that I was going to be the first British chef on Chef's Table, no one turned around and said, "Oh, she's not very British. Why did they choose her? She's not English." And this, I think, comes from the fact that if because I'm so confident of who I am, I will clean the floor with anyone who tells me I don't belong here or I don't belong there. And this is the thing, that it comes from the sense that, it is lonely, it is very tough. And sometimes I do feel I struggle a lot. And that's, when I dig deep into my faith, and I remember that, I should not harm people. I should try and do the best. I should make the world a better place. I want women to come to my grave and say, she changed my life. Not that she was a celebrity or she did something, incredible. I want to have that legacy. That I inspired women to step out and be brave. And though there are times when it hurts a lot, and especially
Yeah.
I miss my parents a lot. I've missed my family. I'm running a business here. I cannot go back. With my own children, I don't eat a single meal with my kids because I'm serving other people. I serve others, and I cannot serve my own parents. I cannot serve my own children. I cannot watch
Yeah.
them eat. I can watch celebrities eat. So this is the thing, that life is always about
Yeah.
holding on and letting go. So sometimes I have to
Yeah.
let go of something.
Yeah, I hear you. Let me ask you in the end. I read this beautiful story about how one of the women in your kitchen added a vada pav to the menu, and the vada pav had a special story from her own sort of somewhat traumatized history, and how food actually liberated her, or making a vada pav in your kitchen liberated her from the shadows of the past. Can we end this conversation with that story?
Yes, I will. I'll be brief because I know we're running out of time. So she grew up on the streets of Bombay and never told us that she could cook. She was what we used to call her Gundi, because she was such a dada in the kitchen. Always, and she's very small. She's extremely, she was only 4 feet something, and, and spectacled, but very brave. During the lockdown, she found it very hard. One day, when you were not allowed to leave, she got caught by the police. She said, I'm taking the food for my boss. She turned up in my house and said, I got you something to eat. I was like, wow, you know how to cook. I've known her for so long. I didn't know she knows how to cook. And she made the vada pav, and I was so stunned. It was amazing. And I said, how do you make it? She said, my entire childhood, this was my food of abuse, because my father
Wow.
had a cart. He would go out, get drunk, come back, was very abusive to her, would beat her mother. So she linked this food to aggression. Over the lockdown, she decided to forgive him. And also, she knew she couldn't go and see her elderly mother, who was in Bombay. We all knew we couldn't go back home. We didn't go back home for years, then 2 years. And she said, I forgive him. And I forgive that because I realized that he's still abusing me. This is very important. I said, then put it on the menu. Put it on the menu. Be proud that I have liberated myself from my abuse and my dark past. And I am now free. Let the world know you're free. I will serve the vada pav. And I have had people who have cried and wept and said, I'm in Bombay. Who has made it? I bring Rashmi up and say, go and say hello to them. Because she is now this all powerful person. She has her own counter. She wears a chef's coat. She's become very important. And she's so sweet. And
Yeah.
she's in her 60s. And it has taken a long time, and it's a story that everybody, please think about this. Those who are pulling you down, you cut that out of your life. You make yourself free. They will never free you. You free yourself.
Incredible. I mean, we could carry on, but I just have to ask you in the end, if you had to say, one thing that you would tell, I've been asking a lot of our speakers today, one thing that you would tell your 16-year-old self, what would that be?
I think that I would say that, the dignity with which you live a life is really the way you live a life. And I hope that I would, at 60, be a dignified person who actually behaved, kindly to everybody.
Well, Asma, you have had an extraordinary journey, and literally listening to you has given me goosebumps. So I can't even imagine what everybody listening to you is feeling. And I have to eat that biryani the next time I'm in London. I keep missing it.
My dear, you don't have the time. You're just, next time you have to find the time to eat the biryani.
No, and people queue up for Asma Khan's biryani and everything else that she serves for months on end. So I'm privileged to get this invitation. Asma Khan, it has been an absolute pleasure and honor to have you with us. And may you go from strength to strength and keep inspiring so many women across the globe. Thank you so much.